Good evening, and I'd like to welcome everybody to council at 6 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'd now like to ask for an adoption of the minutes.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held at the William Gillespie Centre on February 26, 2018 be adopted as circulated.
Moved by Councillor Espy, second by Councillor Dreger. All those in favor? And that's carried. We have no delegations this evening. We have no hearings, and so I will present the Finance and Legislative and Properties Committee report. I will not move the recommendation, but I will cover the report. It is simply the same report that was covered off in committee with regards to the appointment of Mr. Kosterchuk to the board at the Portage Regional Library. And so I'm not going to go into it in detail. You folks know what the appointment was like. It was due to Mrs. Dorothy Morris stepping down. So if someone would like to move that, if there's no questions, we have Councillor Fraze moving.
I move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the appointment of James Kosterchuk to the Portage la Prairie Regional Library Board to replace Dorothy Morris.
Thank you, Councillor Fraze. Moved. Second by Councillor Espy. All those in favor? And that's carried. City Planning and Economic Development, please. Councillor Dreger.
We have before us the December 2017 and the January 2018 building reports. These were discussed in committee at our last meeting at the William Gillespie Centre. And unless there's any questions from council, the numbers are there for your information. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Councillor Dreger. Community Services, nothing to report, I believe. Is that correct?
That's correct. Nothing to
Thank you. Waterworks.
Nothing to report this evening.
Thank you. Transportation.
Nothing for the Transportation Committee this evening.
Public Safety.
Public Safety Committee has nothing.
Pretty light agenda. We do have some new business, and that's a variation extension.
I must declare an interest in this particular item and ask to be recused.
Thank you, Councillor Espy. Please step outside.
Okay, this request for an extension for variation has come to us from CHB Developments, and the original variation was given approval by resolution number 2017/0032 on March 13th of 2017, and Mr. Beers has asked for an additional 12 months, which he is entitled to through the Planning Act, Section 101, and it states the prerequisites there for that to happen. And the original variation order on this matter is available for perusal if anybody wants it, and administratively there are no concerns for that. The recommendation is that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the request of CHB Developments Limited to extend the original variation order PC 6-17 at the properties on the yards on 4th Avenue Northeast, which are legally described as parcels A, B, C, D, E, and F, Plan 57474, Parish of Portage la Prairie, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Dreger. Second by Councillor Draycott. Any questions? All those in favor? And that's carried. We'll just wait for Councillor Espy to return. So there's some new business for the appointment of weed inspector. Councillor Fraze.
The issue is to appoint a municipal noxious weeds inspector and sub-inspectors. The requirement of the Noxious Weeds Act is that every municipality annually appoint a municipal noxious weeds inspector and notify the Crop Industry Development of Manitoba Agriculture of the appointment. These appointments carry out the provisions of the Noxious Weeds Act. Brian Taylor, Manager of Public Works, will be appointed the city's new inspector for 2018. In addition, Lionel Brown and Adam Carpenter will be appointed sub-inspectors. Although the Noxious Weeds Act states that someone must be appointed by March 1st of each year, discussions were ongoing with the province to determine qualifications required. So therefore, at this time, it's the administrative recommendation that in accordance with Section 11 of the Noxious Weeds Act, Council of the City of Portage la Prairie appoint Brian Taylor as the city's Noxious Weeds Inspector and Lionel Brown and Adam Carpenter as sub-inspectors. And further, that notice of these appointments be conveyed to Manitoba Agriculture. And I so move.
Moved by Councillor Fraze, second by Councillor Draycott. Any comments or questions? All those in favor? And that's carried. And finally, our last piece of new business for the evening is the award of tenders of chemicals for the wastewater treatment plant. Councillor Dreger, I believe you're filling in for Councillor Wall.
I am this evening. I'm just going to read the background analysis of this item, and then we will move to vote on it. The tender was posted on the MERC's website, the city page, and electronically posted on the city's webpage. 11 copies of the tender were sent out and 7 submissions received. The tender closed at 2 p.m. on Friday, March 2nd, 2018. The tender has followed the new procurement tender process that incorporates sustainability and best value bid. The rated criteria was set at 10 points maximum for sustainability factors and 90 points for pricing for 100 total points. All the bidders met the maximum 10 points for sustainability. The contract is to supply the treatment chemicals for a 1-year period from March 16, 2018 to February 28, 2019. The tender award should be issued for each individual chemical based on the 1-year pricing of the lowest bidder for each chemical. Some chemicals are only shipped in bulk quantities, and in some cases we must purchase more than 1 year's required quantity. The example there of a chemical I cannot actually pronounce, but it's a coagulant of some kind. In other cases, we will have significant inventory on site and a full year's supply has not been tendered. This is why the estimated annual cost below is not exactly the same as the 1-year tender price. Below is a comparison of the budget to estimated annual cost for each chemical. Chemical expenditures are expected to be reasonably close to the budget estimates. I'm not going to go through the comparison there. The annual chemical budget is $1,106,511.04, and the overall total annual chemical price is estimated at $1,090,022.40, so under the budgeted amount. So it is the administrative recommendation that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie award contracts for the supply of treatment chemicals for the water treatment plant for a 1-year period as specified in Tender 18 OPS 006 to the following companies for the prospective chemical product for their submitted tendered price, including GST, as follows. Lime, Greymont Western Canada Inc., $675,176.25. Potassium, help me out here.
Permanganate.
Permanganate. ClearTech Industries, $13,808.34. I did practice that name, but it just eludes me. Chlorine, Brentag Canada, $43,483.53. Fluoride, Univar Canada, $23,664. Polyaluminum chloride, Border Chemical Company Limited, $108,202.50. Phosphoric acid, Univar Canada Limited, $20,287.80. Dry amniotic polymer, ClearTech Industries, $20,790. Sodium hydroxide, Univar Canada Limited, $223,020. Calcium thiosulfate, ClearTech Industries, $44,100. Now, it does not show the moving here, but I so move that these be accepted.
Moved by Councillor Dreger, seconded by Councillor Fraze. Any comments or questions about the chemicals at hand? Hearing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. We have no old business this evening, so I will adjourn council unless anyone has anything else to add at 6:09. We'll move right into committee, so if councillors can pull those reports up. Is everybody ready? So call committee at 6:10, and first up is myself, and the Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee has nothing to report for next council meeting. Over to City Planning and Economic Development.
City Planning and Economic Development Committee has nothing to report this evening.
Councillor Fraze, Community Services.
Community Service Committee also has nothing to report tonight.
Councillor Dreger.
There is a Waterworks Committee item, and I will just open that here. The issue will be the acceptance of the 2017 Public Water System Annual Report and the 2017 Water Treatment Plant Data Report. And I'm sure when Mr. or Councillor Wall returns in a couple of weeks, he will be happy to fill you in on this, the details of it, and also to bring forward the administrative recommendation. Will that be me again in 2 weeks? It will. Okay, well, I will study up on it then and give you a full report.
Perfect, thank you. Just before we move forward to transportation, I know we've got a parking study presentation, but I suspect, Mr. May, that you had circulated some information here for council. Is that correct?
I did. I meant to.
That's correct. Our 2018 visitor guide is now in circulation, as well features in Travel Bug magazine, and also how we're represented in the Central Manitoba Visitor Guide. And for the councillors that sit on the PRED board, you'll also see a copy of the Prairie Manufacturer magazine, which has a feature article on Portage la Prairie, and a copy of the coloring book if you're bored later on.
I just have a question.
Absolutely.
When can we expect the next issue of Hey Portage? That should be coming up shortly, right?
I believe we're going to press later this week, and we're anticipating that we'll have the issue in time for the Portage Home and Life Expo, which takes place at Stride Place on March 23rd and 24th.
Thank you for that advertising.
Now that you have the mic, is there anything else you'd like to cover over on PRED?
It's all sunshine and rainbows in economic development.
Thank you.
Mr.
Councillor
Mayor,
Dreger.
if I might just add one other item that I forgot. I was going to do this under committee services. I just wanted to draw attention to the tremendous work being done by Dawn Fraze at Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and she held her annual bowl-a-thon this past weekend. When I spoke to Dawn yesterday afternoon, I think it was around 2:45, she was very confident that they would reach their fundraising goal. I think they came in just under it, but if anybody wants to still donate to that, I'm sure that she is still accepting donations. This money will help fund projects and events incurred at the organization. So yours truly and Councillor Espy and Councillor Appa, Youth Councillor Appa, we joined our teams yesterday with other teams to bowl a few rounds. And while our scores were not that presentable, I think we'll be keeping our day jobs, right? I have documents here if anybody wants to see proof. We had a lot of fun, and we were pleased to represent council in this way. So I think Councillor Draycott was there at a different day, right?
We bowled on Friday night, yes.
Right,
Always a very fun annual event for our family that does a great job of supporting children within the city of Portage la Prairie. So we enjoy taking part in that every year.
Good, thank you. And that's it.
Thank you very much. I think I'll now ask Ashley Kosniak, the close, come forward and walk council through a parking study presentation.
Sure.
Welcome.
Hi, is this thing on?
Should be.
Oh, okay.
Now, was there some provisions for, there we are, for controlling the slideshow?
Yes, I need a mouse. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Just apologize ahead of time. I have a cold, so if I start sniffling, or if you can't hear me, let me know, because I can't hear me. So, all right. So yeah, my name's Ashley Kosteniuk, and I'm here today to give you just a brief rundown of the research that I conducted on parking management strategies in small and low-growth cities, particularly focused in Portage la Prairie. And so just a few short months ago, I successfully defended this practicum. I now hold my Master in City Planning, and as a result, this practicum is now published for the public to view. Just briefly before moving into the details of the practicum, I'll discuss how this project came to be. So as I was developing ideas for my practicum, I heard that Portage was looking for a study of its downtown parking. And so I met with Diane Van Aert and Jean-Marc Nadeau to discuss what kind of information the city was interested in obtaining. And with that, I developed a research approach that met the requirements of a graduate academic research project, but that was also able to provide useful information to Portage using the city's downtown as a study area. How does this work? Okay. So with that, this presentation will follow this structure. If you can see that there. I will discuss just in general an intro about the project and the study area, briefly touch on the research methods that were used to collect data, outline some of the key findings that emerged from this data, and then move into potential parking management strategies that the city may consider moving forward. Okay, so while there is a wealth of research on parking management strategies in larger and rapidly growing cities, the lessons may not be applicable to smaller, low-growth cities. This research, the research of his practicum aims to contribute to academic literature while also providing data that the city can use, while also demonstrating the importance of collecting local data to inform your municipal parking management in general. So welcome to downtown Portage, the study area of this practicum. The population of Portage at the time of conducting the study was 12,949, making it the 4th largest settlement center in Manitoba. The city serves nearby municipalities as a center for amenities and services, many of which are located downtown. Much of the downtown is zoned for commercial uses, with residential zones predominantly in peripheral areas. Single detached dwellings make up a majority of residential uses in this particular area. This map shows the downtown and big box commercial shopping areas in relation to each other, which they are in competition with each other. The big box area is located approximately 3.5 kilometers west of the downtown, providing big box retailers and an abundance of large parking lots that are free to users. So I'll discuss the significance of the big box retailing shortly here. So the downtown study area is characterized by a central grid system with approximately 286 functioning on-street metered spots that are municipally owned and maintained. There are also approximately 98 parking meters that are currently non-functional or have been removed, resulting in free and unrestricted on-street parking. Traditionally, meters are installed one per parking spot and accept coins as payment for use, as is the case in Portage. The intention of meters is to create turnover at parking spaces within the downtown core. Metered parking is divided into 2 zones that charge for parking use between the hours of 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays. Zone A charges 25 cents for 15 minutes, and Zone B charges 5 cents for 6 minutes. And there's an estimated 450 unmarked spots located curbside in the residential areas. And lastly, municipal off-street parking lots, found in the purple there, provide 273 unrestricted spots. There are other privately owned lots that are available to the public for parking downtown, but they were not quantified as part of this research. So I'll just briefly touch on the questions that I used to design the research approach to this practicum. These questions were designed as a response to gaps in the data or unknowns about downtown parking in Portage. So first question, how are people using municipally owned public parking within the downtown, and what are their overall patterns of use? What is the relationship between the downtown and other significant commercial areas in Portage la Prairie, specifically the big box commercial area, in terms of parking use? What are the perceptions of the business community concerning municipally owned public parking within the downtown toward existing parking management? And what do other cities of comparable context do in terms of municipally owned downtown parking management strategies? Just briefly, I'll list the research methods that I used to obtain the data that ultimately formed the emerging trends and the potential management strategies. So I conducted unobtrusive study area site observations in which I did my best to blend in while collecting data about the site, such as the numbers of parking meters or use of spots over time. I conducted an intercept surveys with members of the public in the downtown and the big box commercial area. Focus group and semi-structured interviews were held with anonymous members of the business community. A questionnaire was given to a small number of anonymous city staff. I conducted a policy review of planning documents from cities of similar context. And lastly, I conducted an academic literature review to get an idea of what was being published about parking in small cities. All right, so the remaining portion of this presentation will discuss the findings in terms of emerging trends and potential management strategies. So this table outlines typical use of municipal parking in downtown Portage by type. Most users of on-street metered parking occupied spots for a short amount of time, typically in the morning, with higher levels of turnover, while free parking without time restrictions saw longer term use and lower turnover during the morning or afternoon. Weekday and weekend trends of parking use are comparable but are characterized by different volumes, with weekdays being busier. The data indicates that during typical weekday business hours, the supply of municipal parking exceeds its demand. On only 2 occasions did parking exceed the practical 85% occupancy rate. And so just to note, the 85% occupancy rate for public parking spots means that parking is functioning most effectively when 80% of the parking spot or parking supply is in use, while turnover will see 15% of the spots remain available to new users. This is particularly true for larger cities. However, there has not been a figure that has been calculated for smaller cities, so it was applied in this case. 67% of survey participants indicated that their first choice is to not pay for parking. Shocking. There appears to be a willingness to pay at meters under certain conditions, such as if the meter is close to their destination, if they are only stopping for a short period of time, or if they perceive the price of meters to be affordable. The data revealed that perceptions of parking were in many cases different from actual parking use. The general consensus was that although there appeared to be more than enough parking available, there was still a desire for more. Multiple events in the downtown result in the demand of parking exceeding the supply. However, during observations on a typical day, supply exceeded demand. A difference of perceptions concerning off-street lots was also emerged. While the business community agreed that long-term parking users, categorized as downtown employees and residents, needed places to park, they also indicated that it was important for their patrons to easily find parking spaces. There was a correlation between land use and parking behavior. The data revealed that the downtown and big box areas draw patrons for different reasons. For example, land uses in the big box area are larger retail uses, drawing patrons for longer, less frequent trips, whereas the downtown has more of a variety in terms of providing local retail, institutional, and health-related uses that draws patrons for shorter, more frequent trips. There is a lack of signage that effectively explains parking bylaws in the downtown, for example, hours of the day in which meters require payment for use, or which zone a meter is located in. This can also contribute to confusion and parking tickets. The data shows that there is a concern that the enforcement of meters could be too strict at times, and at other times could be inconsistent. Building on this, based on my site observations, parking enforcement does in fact appear to be a little inconsistent, which contributes to people potentially not paying for occupying a spot. During my observations, I counted the number of paid and expired meters. Just over half of the meters were paid as a whole, which leaves a significant number of meters that were expired or not paid for at all. Users of meters may perceive the risk of receiving a parking ticket to be low. The data indicates that the existing parking meters are aging, contributing to user error, in part resulting in meters not being paid for. Meters in Zone B are the most dated as they only accept nickels, dimes, and quarters. They lack a digital interface, whereas meters in Zone A are digital and accept quarters, loonies, and toonies. None of these meters accept payment by card or by phone, which survey participants noted as inconvenient, sometimes leading them to park off-street instead or use meters without paying for them. And in many cases, meters are missing due to breaking down and not being replaced. Lastly, the non-functioning meters often draw longer-term parkers with low rates of turnover, indicating that people are taking advantage of once active meters. Not only is this an example of lost revenue potential, but is also an example of long-term parking behavior creeping out to on-street spaces in the downtown. The last portion of this while there are some examples of how cities of comparable context to Portage manage parking in their downtowns, there are also many examples of cities that do not. Without a concerted effort to address parking in the policies of higher level documents such as development plans and secondary plans, regulatory bylaws like zoning bylaws or traffic bylaws likely remain unchanged. All right, so the last portion of this presentation will discuss some of the potential management strategies that the city may consider implementing in response to the emerging trends. There is no single recommendation, rather suggestions outlining multiple management strategy possibilities for improvement based on the current circumstances, precedent, and best practices. A combination of some or all of the potential parking management strategies could be implemented over time. The city should take into consideration opportunities for challenging the conventions of parking and identifying parking management as an integral part of downtown vibrancy. Sorry, that word was vibrancy. The city may consider creating a formal parking management strategy and a parking planning committee. Precedent shows that similar cities create parking management strategies as part of a larger downtown master plan. This strategy may be part of a pilot program in which the city identifies a goal, implements it on a non-permanent basis, and evaluates its success. And the committee could manage any future parking studies. The city could, actually, the right one here. The city could look to encourage more efficient use of on-street parking, as it will always be in competition with the free off-street variety. If there is an abundant supply of free parking, then meter occupancy may continue to be well below the practical 85% occupancy rate with low turnover. The city could consider adopting a single parking zone for the entire downtown with one rate for meters and provide relevant signage. This may help to alleviate confusion and improve user friendliness and enforcement. However, changes in pricing could result in some users choosing to look for free parking either on or off street. And lastly, time restrictions could be strictly enforced at meters of off-street parking lots to encourage turnover. For example, 2-hour restrictions requiring parkers to move to a new meter on a different block or a different lot. The city may consider managing long-term parking behaviors of on and off-street parking. While the off-street lots are a good example of land uses sharing parking, long-term use can become problematic when it displaces patrons. As such, Portage could require that long-term users, such as employees, apply for permits to park in certain areas of these lots, leaving some potentially metered spaces for short-term users. Offering parking permits for downtown residents may also be an option to guarantee their access to on-street parking, as they are in competition for spots with patrons as well as other long-term parkers. The results of this practicum strongly indicate that the existing parking meters are aging and require upgrading to a user-friendly meter system that accepts multiple forms of payment. Additionally, installing signage outlining clear parking instructions may help users better understand downtown parking restrictions as per the municipal parking and traffic bylaws. The city may consider its capacity to consistently enforce parking. A priority should be on consistency so that people know what to expect in terms of parking and ticketing. In terms of transparency, the city could provide information to the public explaining how enforcement works and how revenues are used through carefully planned promotional or campaign material using traditional forms of media, as well as capitalizing on social media. And lastly, the city could look to some broader land use strategies. Not only can vacant lands be used to accommodate peak parking demand during multiple events, they can also be earmarked for future infill to encourage more patrons into the downtown. Also considering payment in lieu of parking policies, which provide developers or landowners with the opportunity to pay the municipality a sum of money rather than supplying one or multiple parking spots, results in more opportunities for efficient use of land in downtown Portage. And with that, I am done.
Thank you, Ashley. Very informative. I know council has been waiting for this report. We have been talking about a downtown parking strategy for quite some time. So this information will help us and assist us as we move forward. Mm-hmm. Council, do you have any questions of Ashley as it relates to the report?
Did you find a place to park tonight when you came here?
Yes, I parked in a giant puddle. No, yes, there's plenty of parking available. Much like the data that I collected before, parking in the downtown sort of seems to open up a bit more around this time of the evening as people go home and before they're coming out for dinner and stuff. So, yeah. No problems.
I still found it interesting in your report that said that there was ample enough parking, even the perception that there isn't, but
yes.
there is. And,
yeah, and that's often the case in many cities. The perception is that if, I can't find a spot directly in front of my destination or on the same block as my destination, there's an issue with parking. But there maybe is an issue with parking, but that isn't the actual issue. You know, maybe not wanting to walk from your car to your destination, or, you know, maybe the street's icy, you know, that kind of thing. So the perception is often different than the reality.
And the timing of your observations, was that last summer? Is that
yes.
One? Okay.
Yeah, last summer, like the one before last. Was it 2016?
2016.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Is it the amount of meters that are not paid but in use? That is a bit interesting as well.
Yeah, initially that wasn't something that I had considered making note of, but as I was walking through the study area multiple times a day for many, many days, I realized this is information that I should be collecting, because there were a number of spots that were in use but not paid for. Whether or not they had been paid for in the past, I just had expired. I can't verify that, but that being said, there were bylaw officers that were monitoring the area. I didn't monitor how many tickets were given out, but yeah, that, like I said, mentioned that is some lost revenue potential, not necessarily in ticketing, but also in terms of what people pay for the spot to use.
Well, thank you. Well, as I said, we'll use a report in preparation for decisions we'll make in the future. So
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Someone else back.
And Transportation Committee.
That is all Transportation Committee has this evening.
Okay. Public Safety.
I'd like to report this evening.
Thank you. So as per usual, we will now open up question period for those in attendance. If there are any questions, council now welcomes those questions. And seeing none, I'd now like to close committee at 6:33. Thank you very much, everybody.